At 11:47 p.m., I overheard my son's wife planning to steal my house and commit me to a memory facility by Monday. I had 19 hours to stop her or lose everything. What I did next sent her to prison for 8 years. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has reached. But she didn't know who I really was. Saturday night, 11:47 p.m., I couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs for water. That's when I heard Cordelia's voice coming from Pierce's study, and what she said made my blood run cold. "The paperwork is ready," Cordelia said, her voice sharp and excited in a way I'd never heard before. "Sunday dinner. We do it in front of everyone. My concerned family intervention. Judge Whitmore already signed the pre-approval for incompetency. She signs over the house, or we have her committed Monday morning." My hand gripped the banister so tightly I thought the wood might crack. A man's voice responded, Cordelia's brother Tad. "And you're sure the old woman has no other assets? No hidden bank accounts? No investments?" Cordelia laughed. Actually laughed. "She's a nobody, Tad. She worked as a secretary her whole life, filing papers in billing departments. This house is all she has. Once it's ours, we flip it for $2.3 million, split it, and Pierce never has to know. He can't even remember what day it is anymore." Another voice, female, smooth and calculating. "What about his daughter? Iris arrives tomorrow, doesn't she?" "That little brat?" Cordelia's voice turned cold as ice. "I've already got boarding school applications ready. St. Augustine's in Vermont. She'll be gone by Monday, out of our way permanently. Pierce won't even remember she was here." I stood there in the darkness, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But I didn't gasp. I didn't run. I didn't burst into that room and confront them. Instead, I slowly backed away, step by careful step, until I reached my bedroom. I closed the door silently, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at my trembling hands in the moonlight. They thought I was nobody, a weak old woman, a secretary who'd spent her life being invisible. They had no idea who I really was. And tomorrow, I would remind them. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has reached. Let me take you back. Back to when I wasn't Vera Ashford, quiet widow who worked in accounting departments. Back to when I was Vera Whitlock. 35 years ago, I was the youngest federal prosecutor in Illinois state history. I was 28 years old when I won my first major case, a corruption scandal that sent 6 city council members to prison. By 30, I'd prosecuted the Castellano crime family, putting 23 members behind bars. By 32, I'd dismantled the Richfield Ponzi scheme and recovered $800 million for defrauded investors. They called me the widow in the courtrooms. Not because I was married, I wasn't, not then, but because every case I touched ended in conviction. I left no survivors. Defense attorneys would see my name on the docket and try to get their clients to take plea deals rather than face me in court. I won 73 consecutive cases. Never lost. Not once. The newspapers loved me. "The Widow Whitlock strikes again," the headlines would read. I had job offers from every major law firm in the country. The Attorney General's office wanted me in Washington. I was on a path to becoming one of the most powerful legal minds in America. And then I met Graham. He was a high school history teacher, completely ordinary. He taught kids about the Revolutionary War and made terrible jokes about Benjamin Franklin. He had kind eyes and gentle hands, and he didn't care that I was the widow. He didn't care about my cases or my reputation or my ambition. He just loved me. Simply. Completely. We married quietly. I got pregnant with Pierce. And then, 3 months into my pregnancy, Graham was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease. The doctor said he had maybe 15 years if we were lucky. He'd need constant care eventually. He'd need someone to be there, not someone who spent 80 hours a week in courtrooms destroying people's lives. I made my choice. I retired from prosecution at the height of my power. I was 33 years old. I changed my name back to my maiden name, Ashford. I took a simple job as an accountant in a billing department. I became invisible. For 15 years, I cared for Graham. I raised Pierce. I worked my quiet job during the day and came home to help my husband button his shirts when his hands shook too much. I fed him. I bathed him. I held him when he cried, because his body was betraying him. And when he died 5 years ago, Pierce held my hand at the funeral and said, "Mom, you gave up everything for Dad. For me, you're the strongest person I know." If only he knew. I had saved $8.7 million from my prosecution days, invested wisely by my old law partner Desmond Hartley. But I never told Pierce. I wanted him to be loved for himself, not for money or connections. I wanted to see who people really were when they thought I had nothing. And now, standing in my bedroom at midnight, listening to my daughter-in-law plot to steal my home and drug my son and send my granddaughter away, I realized my test had revealed the truth. Cordelia had failed, and the widow was coming back. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? At 5:01 a.m., I was sitting at my small desk in my bedroom, the lamp casting long shadows across the walls. My hands had stopped shaking. They were steady now, the way they used to be when I'd prepare opening statements that would destroy someone's defense. I opened my closet and pushed past the simple dresses and cardigans I'd worn for years. In the back, in a locked wooden box I hadn't opened in decades, was my old life. My Illinois state bar license. Still active, I'd kept up the registration fees every year, just in case. My prosecutor's badge, tarnished with age but still stamped with my name, Vera Whitlock, case files, photos, news clippings with headlines I'd forgotten. And at the bottom, a small leather address book filled with names and phone numbers of people who owed me favors. Judges I'd helped, attorneys I'd mentored, police officers whose careers I'd saved. I picked up my phone and dialed the first number. "Desmond Hartley's office," a sleepy voice answered. "It's Vera," I said quietly. "Tell him the widow needs the files, all of them, and tell him to make calls. I'm going to war." There was a long pause on the other end. Then, "My God, Vera? After all these years?" "After all these years," I confirmed. "I need everything by noon. Can you do it?" "For you? Absolutely. What's happened?" "Someone threatened my family, and they're about to learn why you should never corner a widow." At 6:30 a.m., I went to Pierce's room. My son was sleeping, his face gaunt and pale, his breathing shallow. He looked so much older than his 42 years. The stroke 9 months ago had changed him, they said. Left him confused, forgetful, unable to work. But as I stood there watching him, something didn't feel right. I'd cared for Graham through 15 years of Parkinson's. I knew what neurological decline looked like. This wasn't it. I opened Pierce's bedside table drawer as quietly as I could. Inside were his medication bottles, anti-anxiety medication, sleeping pills, pain medication, all prescribed by Dr. Rowena Prescott, Cordelia's life coach friend who apparently also practiced medicine. I picked up the first bottle. Prescribed 30 days ago. Should contain 30 pills, 1 per day. It was empty. The second bottle. Prescribed 25 days ago. Should have 5 pills left. Empty. The third bottle. Prescribed 3 weeks ago. Empty. My stomach dropped. 12 bottles total, all depleted far too quickly. I carefully took one bottle from each prescription type and slipped them into my purse. Evidence. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I leaned down and kissed my son's forehead, and I whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have seen this sooner, but Mama's here now, and I'm going to fix this." His eyes fluttered open slightly. "Mom?" His voice was slurred, thick. "Shh, sleep now. Everything's going to be okay." But it wasn't. Not yet. At 10 a.m., a taxi pulled up in front of the house. I watched from the kitchen window as my granddaughter Iris stepped out, her long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face set in that defensive teenage scowl that breaks every grandmother's heart. She was 16 now. I hadn't seen her in 3 months. Cordelia always had excuses for why visits were inconvenient or why Pierce was too tired to see his daughter from his first marriage. Cordelia appeared from upstairs, dressed immaculately as always, her smile as fake as plastic flowers. "Iris, darling, so good to see you." She air-kissed near Iris's cheeks without actually touching her. "I'm only here because the custody agreement requires it," Iris said flatly. "Dad doesn't want to see me anyway." "Oh, sweetie, it's not that he doesn't want to. He's just not himself lately. You understand." I watched my granddaughter's face crumble slightly before she rebuilt the wall. "Whatever. Where's my room?" "Actually," Cordelia said smoothly, "I thought we'd talk about your schooling options. I found some wonderful boarding schools." "Iris." I stepped forward from the kitchen. "Come help your grandmother with lunch. We need to talk." Cordelia's eyes flashed with annoyance, but she couldn't object without seeming suspicious. Iris followed me into the kitchen. Her shoulders slumped with the weight of teenage rejection. I waited until Cordelia left, then I closed the kitchen door and turned to my granddaughter. "Iris, I need you to listen very carefully. Your father wants to see you. He's been wanting to see you for months." "Then why hasn't he called? Why hasn't he answered my texts?" I took a breath. "Because your stepmother has been deleting them, and there's more, much more. And I need your help to save your father. But first, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Iris stared at me, her young face torn between hope and suspicion. "Grandma, what's going on?" "Come with me. I want to show you something." I led Iris to Pierce's room. He was awake but groggy, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. "Dad?" Iris's voice cracked. She rushed to his bedside. "Dad, it's me." "It's Iris." Pierce turned his head slowly. "Iris? Baby girl? When did you— I thought—" "I'm here, Dad. I'm right here." I poured a glass of water and handed it to Pierce. "Drink this. Just water. No medication right now." He drank slowly, and I watched. Within 20 minutes, his eyes began to clear, just slightly. The fog lifted just enough for him to focus on Iris's face. "They told me you didn't want to visit," he mumbled. "I've been texting you every day for 3 months," Iris said, tears streaming down her face. "Every single day." Pierce looked confused. I didn't get—" I put my hand on Iris's shoulder. "Your stepmother has been over-medicating your father and deleting your messages, and tonight, she's planning to take this house from me and send you to boarding school in Vermont." Iris spun around. "What?" "And I need your help to stop her. Are you with me?" My granddaughter wiped her tears, and in her eyes, I saw the same fire I used to see in the mirror 35 years ago. "I'm with you, Grandma. What do we do?" We had 8 hours until the Sunday dinner trap. 8 hours to build a case that would destroy Cordelia's plans and expose everything she'd done. I sent Iris on reconnaissance. She keeps papers in her desk in the guest bedroom. "I need you to photograph everything. Use your phone." Don't take anything. We can't let her know we're looking. While Iris worked upstairs, I made calls. First, to Desmond. Did you find Judge Ramsey? She's available. She'll be there at 6 p.m. What else do you need? File an emergency guardianship petition for Pierce. Cite suspected elder abuse and undue influence. And I need a toxicology screen done today. Can you send someone to pick up medication samples? Consider it done, Vera. It's good to have you back. I was never gone, Desmond. I was just waiting. Next, I called an old contact in the district attorney's office. Kingston Rourke, please. Tell him it's the widow calling. There was a long pause, then a deep voice came on the line. Vera Whitlock? Is that really you? It's Ashford now, but yes, it's me. I need a favor, Kingston. Name it. You saved my career 20 years ago. I need you at an address tonight at 6 p.m. Bring 2 officers. There's going to be attempted fraud, elder abuse, and if I'm right about the medications, possible attempted murder. I heard him whistle low. Jesus, Vera, what have you gotten into? Nothing I can't handle, but I need backup. Can you be there? For you, I'll be there with bells on. Iris came downstairs, her phone full of photographs. Grandma, you need to see this. She showed me image after image. Boarding school applications for her, already approved, deposit paid. Forged power of attorney documents with my signature. Property transfer papers. Bank statements showing $340,000 transferred from Pierce's accounts to someone named Nash Gallagher. Who's Nash Gallagher? Iris asked. I felt my jaw tighten. Pierce's former business partner, the one who pushed him out of their software company 9 months ago. The same time Dad had his stroke? There was no stroke, sweetheart. Just drugs and betrayal. Iris's hands were shaking. How could she do this to him, to us? Greed, I said simply, and the belief that I was too weak to stop her. I pulled up the family iCloud account. Pierce had set it up years ago and never changed the passwords. Within minutes, I had access to Cordelia's text messages, and there they were. Hundreds of messages to Nash Gallagher. Can't wait to be rid of him. Once the old lady signs, we're free. The house is worth 3 matters. We split it and disappear. Pierce won't even know we're gone. He can rot in whatever facility is cheapest. I screenshot every single one. At 3:00 p.m., Desmond's courier arrived with lab results. I opened the envelope with steady hands. The toxicology report confirmed it. Pierce's blood showed levels of anti-anxiety medication 3 times higher than prescribed. Long-term exposure. Consistent with cognitive impairment. I had everything I needed. Now, I just had to perform. At 4 p.m., I began my act. I shuffled into the living room where Cordelia was arranging flowers for the dinner. I was wearing my oldest cardigan, my hair slightly messy, my expression vague. Caroline? I said to Cordelia, deliberately using the wrong name. Have you seen my glasses? Cordelia's eyes lit up with barely concealed delight. It's Cordelia, Mother Vera, and your glasses are on your head. I reached up, touched the glasses, looked confused. Oh, yes, of course. I knocked over a vase of flowers. Water spilled across the coffee table. Oh, no. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean... It's fine, Cordelia said, her voice dripping with false patience. Why don't you go rest, Mother Vera? The guests will be here soon. I shuffled away, and as I passed the stairs, I saw Iris watching from above. Her hand over her mouth to keep from laughing. At 5 p.m., cars began arriving. Cordelia's parents, wealthy, snobbish, dressed like they were attending a country club gala rather than a family dinner. Her brother Tad and his mousy wife. Rowena Prescott in an expensive suit, carrying a leather medical bag like some kind of prop. And then, A silver Mercedes pulled up, and out stepped a man I recognized from Pierce's old company photos. Nash Gallagher. Tall, handsome, arrogant smile. He walked in like he owned the place, shook hands with Tad, kissed Cordelia's cheek just a little too long. I watched from my bedroom window, and I felt the old fire ignite in my chest. At 5:45 p.m., a black town car pulled up discreetly down the street. Judge Whitmore arrived through the back door. Cordelia didn't want the official part to look too official. The trap was set. But so was mine. At 6 p.m., everyone gathered in the dining room. The table was set beautifully. Cordelia had always had impeccable taste when spending other people's money. 20 people total. All her family and friends. All here to witness my intervention. Pierce was wheeled in by Cordelia, heavily sedated, barely conscious. Iris sat next to him, holding his hand, her jaw clenched. I shuffled in last, wearing my oldest dress, my hair a bit wild, my expression befuddled. "Oh my," I said vaguely. "What a lovely party. Is it someone's birthday?" A few people exchanged glances. Cordelia's mother whispered something to Tad. Cordelia stood, glass of wine in hand, her face a mask of concern. "Thank you all for coming. I know this isn't easy. But family must come together in difficult times." She looked at me with fake sympathy. "As you all know, my dear mother-in-law Vera has been struggling lately. She's confused, forgetful, and we're so worried about her safety." Murmurs of agreement around the table. "Dr. Prescott has conducted a thorough evaluation." Rowena stood, pulled out official-looking papers. "Mrs. Ashford shows clear signs of cognitive decline. For her own welfare, I'm recommending immediate placement in a supervised care facility. And Judge Whitmore has already approved the necessary legal steps," Cordelia added smoothly. The judge nodded gravely. "It's all been handled properly. Mrs. Ashford, this is for your own good." Cordelia slid a stack of papers across the table toward me. "Vera, sweetheart, we found a wonderful place for you. Willowbrook Memory Care. Beautiful grounds, excellent staff. You'll be so happy there. Just sign here, and we can get you the help you need." Everyone watched me. Pitying eyes, sad smiles. The old woman who'd lost her mind. I picked up the pen with a trembling hand. I looked at the papers, confused. I brought the pen to the signature line. And then I put it down. I looked up, and my eyes were no longer vague. They were sharp, clear, cold as winter ice. "Before I sign anything," I said, my voice suddenly firm and powerful, "I'd like to introduce some people." The front door opened. Desmond Hartley walked in, 72 years old, but sharp as a razor in his impeccable three-piece suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind him, Agent Kingston Rourke from the state attorney's office, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Behind them, Judge Ramsey from the circuit court, a woman I'd tried cases with 30 years ago. And finally, Dr. Howell from Chicago General Hospital, carrying a medical bag and official documentation. The room froze. Every face turned white except for Iris, who was filming everything on her phone with a small smile. Cordelia's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. I stood up. No shuffle, no trembling, no confusion. I stood tall and straight, and when I spoke, my voice carried the authority of a woman who'd sent 73 criminals to prison. "My name is Vera Ashford, but some of you might know my former name, Vera Whitlock. For those who don't recognize it, I was the chief prosecutor for the state of Illinois for 12 years. They called me the widow because I never lost a case. 73 convictions. 0 losses." Gasps echoed around the room. Cordelia's father went pale. Tad started sweating. Judge Whitmore tried to stand. Agent Rourke stepped behind him. "Please, sit down, Judge," I said coldly. "We're not finished." I nodded to Desmond, who pulled out a laptop and connected it to the TV on the wall. Cordelia, you thought I was nobody. A secretary? A weak-old woman you could manipulate and discard. You didn't do your research. Let me fill in the gaps. The TV screen lit up. Exhibit A, bank statements. The screen showed transaction after transaction. $340,000 total, transferred from Pierce's accounts to Nash Gallagher. Money stolen from my son's business accounts, transferred to Nash Gallagher, who's sitting right there at the end of the table, pretending to be Pierce's concerned friend. Nash shot to his feet. The officers moved to block the door. Exhibit B, medication records. Photos of 12 empty pill bottles appeared on screen. Anti-anxiety medication, sleep aids, all prescribed by Dr. Rowena Prescott, who, by the way, isn't actually a licensed physician. She's a life coach with a certificate from an online course. These medications were prescribed to last 30 days each. All 12 bottles were emptied in less than 2 weeks. I turned to Dr. Howell. Doctor, would you like to share your findings? Dr. Howell stepped forward. I conducted an independent neurological examination of Mr. Pierce Ashford this afternoon, with his consent. He shows no signs of cognitive impairment or stroke damage. His symptoms are entirely consistent with benzodiazepine overdose, specifically over-medication with anti-anxiety drugs. In other words, I said, looking directly at Cordelia, you've been drugging my son to make him seem incompetent. Cordelia's mother gasped. Her father stood up, his face red with humiliation. Exhibit C, communications. Text messages filled the screen. Cordelia's messages to Nash. Can't wait to be rid of him. Once the old lady signs, we're free. Pierce won't even know we're gone. And then, the most damning one. 2 more weeks of high doses and he won't be able to tell anyone anything. Then we do the dinner, get the house, and leave him in whatever facility is cheapest. I don't care if he rots. The room erupted. Cordelia's mother was crying. Her father was shouting at Cordelia. Guests were standing, shocked, horrified. Exhibit D, forged documents. Property transfer papers appeared on screen with my signature, clearly forged. The handwriting analysis displayed beside it showing the differences. Power of attorney forms, property transfer, all with forged signatures, and Judge Whitmore pre-signed an incompetency order without proper evaluation, without following legal procedure, which is grounds for disbarment. Judge Ramsey stepped forward, her voice grave. Judge Whitmore, consider yourself suspended pending a full ethics investigation. I'll be filing formal charges tomorrow morning. Exhibit E, child endangerment. Boarding school applications for Iris appeared on screen, all approved and paid for without Pierce's knowledge or consent. You plan to ship my granddaughter to Vermont tomorrow morning, without custody approval, without the consent of her legal guardian. That's kidnapping conspiracy, Cordelia. Iris was crying now. But they were tears of relief, of vindication. Exhibit F, the house. Property records filled the screen. You thought this house was all I had. You thought you could force me to sign it over, sell it for $2.3 million, split it with your lover, and disappear. There's just one problem. I smiled, and it was not a kind smile. This house is worth $2.3 million, yes, but it's held in a family trust established 15 years ago. Pierce is the sole beneficiary. You never had any legal claim to it, Cordelia. Not even as his wife. The trust is irrevocable. But here's what you really didn't know, I continued, and my voice dropped to something dangerous. My net worth is $8.7 million. I was one of the highest paid prosecutors in Illinois history, and I invested wisely. This house? It's not even my primary asset. It's just the place where I chose to live quietly and see who people really were when they thought I had nothing. I looked around the room at all of Cordelia's friends and family, and what I saw was this. My daughter-in-law is a thief, an abuser, and a would-be murderer. Her brother is a gambling addict with $340,000 in debts to dangerous people. That's why he needed this scheme, isn't it, Tad? Her doctor is a fraud. Her lover is an embezzler, and her judge is corrupt. Agent Rourke stepped forward, his voice official and cold. Cordelia Kensington Ashford, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted murder. Nash Gallagher, same charges, plus grand theft. Judge Whitmore, you're being detained for corruption and ethics violations. Rowena Prescott, you're under arrest for practicing medicine without a license and conspiracy to commit fraud. Cordelia finally found her voice, shrill and desperate. You can't do this! These people are all witnesses! They saw she's incompetent! I walked toward her slowly, and she actually backed away from me. These people saw me act incompetent, Cordelia. I was a prosecutor for 12 years. Do you think I don't know how to perform for a jury? I knocked over one vase, called you by the wrong name, and you were so eager to believe I was senile that you didn't question it for a second. I turned to her parents. Your daughter is a criminal. You raised her to believe she could take whatever she wanted. Look at what that created. To Rowena, you're not a doctor, you're a predator who preys on vulnerable people. Enjoy prison. To Tad, your gambling debts are your own problem, but I know who you owe money to, and trust me, prison might be safer for you. To Nash, you stole from my son. You betrayed your business partner. And you thought you'd ride off into the sunset with his wife and his money. Instead, you'll spend the next decade in a federal facility. To Judge Whitmore, you signed an illegal order to help your friend commit fraud. You're a disgrace to the bench. The officers moved in. Handcuffs came out. Cordelia was screaming now, struggling against the officer holding her. This isn't fair! You can't do this! I want a lawyer! Oh, you'll get a lawyer, I said calmly. Several, probably. But let me tell you something about lawyers, Cordelia. I trained half of them in this state, and when they hear you're up against the widow, they're going to tell you to take whatever plea deal you can get, because no one wants to face me in court. No one ever has. No one ever will. As they led her away, she was still screaming. Nash went quietly, his face ashen. Tad was crying. Rowena was trying to negotiate. Judge Whitmore was stone-faced. The dinner guests were slipping out, embarrassed, ashamed to have been part of this. Cordelia's parents approached me, her mother crying. Mrs. Ashford, we had no idea. We thought, she said you were ill, that this was for your own good. You believed what you wanted to believe, I said, not unkindly. Because it was easier than questioning your daughter. But she's an adult. She made her choices. Now she'll face the consequences. When the room finally cleared, it was just me, Pierce, Iris, Desmond, and Dr. Howell. Pierce was more alert now, the fog clearing from his eyes. He looked at me with tears streaming down his face. Mom? I don't understand. You're... I sat down next to my son and took his hand, the way I'd done when he was a little boy. I'm sorry, baby. I should have told you years ago who I used to be. But after your father got sick, I just wanted to be a mom. Not the widow, not the prosecutor, just your mom. But you gave up everything. I gave up a career. I didn't give up what mattered. You mattered. Your father mattered. And I would make the same choice 1,000 times over. Iris hugged both of us, crying. Grandma, you're the most badass person I've ever met. I laughed through my own tears. Language, young lady. Dr. Howell stepped forward. Mr. Ashford, I'm going to set up a treatment plan to help flush the medications from your system and monitor your recovery. Based on what I've seen, you should regain full cognitive function within a few weeks. Pierce nodded, squeezing my hand. Mom? The widow? Just Vera now? I said softly. The widow did what she needed to do. Now she can rest again. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows as I flipped pancakes on the griddle. Iris sat at the counter doing homework, occasionally stealing bites of bacon. Pierce walked in, walking, not shuffling, not needing assistance, and poured himself coffee. Morning, Mom. Morning, Iris. Morning, Dad. 3 months had changed everything. Cordelia took a plea deal. 8 years in federal prison for elder abuse, fraud, and embezzlement. With good behavior, she'd serve 6. Her lawyer had called me, begging me to submit a letter requesting leniency. I declined. Nash got 6 years for grand theft and conspiracy. His software company collapsed when investors learned what he'd done. Everything he owned was seized to pay restitution to Pierce. Judge Whitmore was disbarred and faced 3 years for corruption. His career, his reputation, everything he'd built, gone. Rowena lost all her certifications and faced 2 years for fraud and practicing medicine without a license. Every person she'd ever coached was now suing her. Tad fled the state but was arrested in Nevada trying to board a plane to Mexico. He faced 5 years for conspiracy and fraud. The people he owed money to? They'd have to wait in line. Pierce's recovery was remarkable. Dr. Howell called it one of the fastest he'd ever seen. Within 3 weeks, the medication was out of his system. Within 6 weeks, Pierce was back to his old self, sharp, funny, present. He'd even started a new software consulting business from home. Iris moved in permanently. Her mother, Pierce's ex-wife, agreed it was best for her to be in a stable home. She flourished. Her grades improved. She joined the debate team at school. She wanted to be a lawyer, she told me. Like Grandma, she said. The badass lawyer who destroys bad guys. The house was full of life again. Laughter, music, the smell of home-cooked meals. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Pierce turned to me. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? About who you were? What you'd accomplished? I thought about it for a moment. Because I wanted you to be loved for yourself, not for my reputation or my money. I wanted to know who was real, and I learned something, Pierce. Sometimes you have to become invisible to see the truth. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is hide your power until the moment it's needed most. But you weren't really invisible, were you? Iris asked, sitting on the porch steps. No, sweetheart. I was just waiting, watching, being a mother, being a grandmother, living the life I chose. And when someone threatened my family, when they thought I was too weak and too old to fight back, the widow reminded them why she never lost a case. Pierce hugged me. You're the strongest person I know, Mom. You always have been. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. I'd spent 12 years in courtrooms, destroying criminals, building a reputation that made lawyers tremble. But I'd spent the last 35 years building something more important. A family, a home, a life filled with love. And in the end, when that life was threatened, I'd proven that you can put away your armor, but you never forget how to fight. The widow had returned, just for a moment, and she'd reminded the world why they called her undefeated. The story you've just heard is based on true events, but names and places have been changed to protect the identities of those involved. We don't share this to judge, but to remind you of something important. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume that someone's kindness is weakness, or that their humility means they have no power. The strongest people are often the ones who've learned to hide their strength until the moment it's truly needed. They're the ones who've chosen love over ambition, family over fame, and peace over power, until peace is no longer possible. I spent 35 years being invisible, not because I was weak, but because I was strong enough to choose what mattered most. And when my family needed me, I became visible again. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you have revealed yourself sooner? Or would you have waited, watched, and gathered evidence the way I did? Would you have chosen confrontation? Or would you have chosen the law? I want to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments what you would have done. Share your own stories of times you had to stand up for your family. Times you had to be stronger than you thought possible. Because every story we share is a light that guides someone else through their own darkness. Every voice that speaks up makes it easier for the next person to find their courage. God always blesses those who protect their families with wisdom and strength. And I firmly believe that truth and justice, though they may take time, will always prevail in the end. Remember, you are stronger than you know, more capable than you believe. And if you ever find yourself facing impossible odds, remember the widow who waited 35 years and never forgot how to fight. On the end screen, I'm leaving 2 more stories from this channel that I promise will move you, surprise you, and remind you of the power we all carry inside us. Thank you for staying with me until the very end.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, the quiet ones, we're just waiting for our moment. God bless you all.